Everybody online scares me. Everybody in the room, can we get started? Guys, we're getting going here. Let's get going. All right. All right. Quick, I'll run through the announcements real quick. So as normal, our combo board and show committee meeting meets on the Mondays after our monthly meetings here. So if you want to join that, join. If you want more chances to win plans from the opportunity table, bring food item or a flowering plant. Also wear your name tags. If you want to attend the speaker dinner before the meetings, same night as our meetings, let me know. Judging, Pacific Central Judging Center is here during our meetings, also at the Filoli House on the third Saturday morning of each month. And Sierra Nevada Judging Center is at Sacramento meetings, which will be the night after hours. Yeah, you want to talk about the?
Oh yeah, next meeting is the holiday party. So December 2nd, it's the auditorium, not in this room. And this is a QR code, the green and red one. It'll be in the newsletter. But I'm asking that you RSVP. We typically get like 60 to 80 people coming for that. It's a potluck. It starts an hour earlier. So it's going to start at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. and we'll be open at 5:30 to set up. And as soon as the food's out and ready, we'll let people eat. If the RSVP, it kind of asks like, comment on like what you're bringing, a little bit of dessert or something, but we'll make it all work. They will bring labels to your food, so like things people are allergic to or don't tolerate or possible. So we know or at least put the ingredients, you know. What else? Oh, and everyone gets free plants. So just similar to what we do with the raffle table here. So that's the other reason we need the RSVP is to make sure we have enough stuff for everyone. And if you have things you've been wanting to get rid of that are orchid or plant related, welcome to bring and add it on the table for other people to take. And if there's more, we just keep going till all the stuff's gone. So I've been told we're getting a lot of plants from the Conservatory of Flowers is donating extra divisions of things. So we should have an unusual plant table.
Should be fun.
Yeah.
Next friend, private orchid over here. Go on.
Can we bring plus ones?
Yes. But just tell us, like in the RSVP thing, it's a Google form. If you can't figure that out, email it.
So private orchid sale from one of our members in Bell on the 8th and 15th of this month. So there's lots of different things, different prices. If you want any more info on this, let us know. This is kind of all the info I have, but bring your own box though. Jeff, I'll hand over to you again.
All right. I'm also on the fundraising committee for the Orchid Digest. So for those of you who don't get Orchid Digest, it's a wonderful, beautiful quarterly magazine. But what it costs like $50 a year, and it costs like $100 a year to produce per person for the print. So we're trying to do things to fundraise. So we have symposiums like the Catlia Symposium at the Huntington this weekend is to raise money for it. And the other thing is OCA has volunteered to collaborate. So if you're an Orchid Digest member, which like I just said, costs you like, I think it's 50 for a print or 30 something for the online membership. You get $100 off the orchid trips from OCA. You have to do it before you register and tell them that you're an Orchid Digest member and they have to confirm all that. But you get $100 off the trip that pays for more than pays for the Orchid Digest membership. And the $1,000 donation to conservation will be partly split between Orchid Digest and OCA. So we're helping to promote and advertise for OCA and help conservation trips, and they're helping Orchid Digest remain in print for at least another year at a time. Any questions?
Questions on that? Then there's this really small event coming up. I'm sure you guys haven't heard about it. End of February, as usual, dipping into March with the preview night being on the Thursday before, on the 26th. So we will keep, plugging that. And I think those are all the, new members to, Jerry, Kim, and Ellie. Anybody here tonight?
There's another new member here. Really nice.
Apologies, we missed putting you in here, but thank you, welcome. And with that, I will introduce our speaker tonight. So it's, our speaker is Nicholas Rust, an emerging hybridizer and owner of Rusty Exotics Orchids, which graciously provided us with our opportunity table tonight. He also brought some plants for sale too, so if you're interested in purchasing any, you can go see him after the talk. Nick focuses on terrestrial orchids, especially Habaneria, along with jewel orchids, Australian terrestrials, and bulbophyllum. With a background in biochemistry and molecular biology, he approaches orchid cultivation and breeding through a scientific lens, using rarely cultivated species to develop unique and exceptional hybrids. So tonight, he'll be talking to us about Habanerias. With that, I will hand over to him and switch over the presentation. Okay. See if this.
Okay, I might remember to do that. Okay, I get past the capture is up. And could we actually get these lights too? Is that on? Can people hear me? I'm blowing out the mic. Okay, wonderful. So the reason I like having all the lights off is because of a funny story. And that's once upon a time, I'm from Atlanta, and we usually have our show in March, which for these terrestrial orchids that are deciduous, and in March they're either completely dormant or they're about 1/4 of a centimeter tall, is kind of a terrible time for a show. But for whatever reason, a few years back, we actually got to move it to November, which for me was wonderful because that was the kind of end of the peak blooming season for Habaneria. And I've had this whole table, whole display of all these beautiful blooming plants. And I had several people come up to me and say, I can't believe you're selling dyed orchids at an orchid show. These are actually this bright. So one of the wonderful things about Habaneria is that the colors you see are legitimately how bright they are. They are fantastic at blooming, truly neon colors. So they show up better if it's in the dark. But with that, let's start talking about Habaneria. So a quick summary, what are Habaneria? This is going to be a short history of the genus and what actually describes a Habaneria as such, because as you'll very quickly see, it's a very large genus and a very diverse genus. Then we'll get to the hybrid analysis. This is going to make the bulk of the talk. This is really just the species that make the hybrids. And then, of course, we will talk about Habaneria culture, which is how to not kill your Habaneria, with a big focus on the big bad dormancy. So what are Habaneria? This was a genus that was described in 1805. The name comes from the Latin word of habena for habenis, which refers to the nectary. So it means strap or rain refers to the nectary that all Habaneria have. Now I mentioned it's a large genus, and it really is. There's just over 900 species currently described in Habaneria, and they are in the Habaneriinae subtribe. So what are Habaneria? They are small to large size terrestrial or occasional epiphytic geophytes that grow on all continents of the world excluding Antarctica. That's a whole bunch of jargon. That's all that is. It means they're diverse. You have some species like Habanerias from Southeast Asia. It is a hot growing small to medium sized species. You've got large growing species like Parageniculata from Southeast Asia extending into India. You have some American or North American Habaneria like Floribunda right here. You also have strict epiphytic Habaneria like this Sandigoensis from Nepal. It's also cool growing. So Habaneria are diverse. Yet despite that, every one of these plants that we're seeing up here are all Habaneria. So with that, we have to talk a little bit about the anatomy. So why are they Habaneria? And then B, Why are they orchids? Because these definitely have a slightly different orchid anatomy than your typical, let's say, cattleya might have. So first of all, Habaneria are all about the lip. In every single one of these plants, what makes up the vast majority of the flower is the lip. In Carnea, this entire structure right here, that's the lip. In Sanguinensis, this very dominantly kind of trident-shaped structure, that is the lip of Habanerias sanguinensis. So with that, how is this important? You know, this doesn't look anything like your typical orchid anatomy, which means we are going into the anatomy dungeon. So first of all, it's the labella. The labella makes up the majority of the flower, as I had mentioned. In many cases, it is trilobed, so you have two side lobes, and then you have a mid-lobe. Sometimes that mid-lobe is bifurcated, which means it's a little fishtail or little feet, little legs, and looks like a person. We have our lateral sepals in species like Carnea. They stand out and they're actually a backdrop for the lip. In other species, they completely reflect and you don't see them at all. And then we've got the hood right here. In the hood, the sides of it, those are actually your petals. While the dorsal sepal makes up the very apex or the very top of that hood. So it, just like any other orchid, has the expected anatomy. You also have the column right here in the center, which is sort of censored a little bit by this structure here called the rostrum. Now, very quickly, Habaneria have beautiful foliage, just beautiful, beautiful foliage. So people don't only grow these for their flowers, they're very commonly grown for their leaves too. But a history of hybridization, this started with a French orchid collector named Regnier, which I'm sure I'm not saying correctly, but that's okay. Back in the early 20th century with some hybrids like Regnieri and Lavigny back in 1912. Then almost 100 years went without a single new hybrid being made until finally the early 21st century Couture orchids sort of reintroduced hybridization with some plants like flamingo, tanager, and several more. Now, after Couture orchids dissolved, Leon Glissenstein continued to take charge in Habaneria hybridization, where he now has the ornithology or the bird series, as well as the mythology series and the gemstone series. So let's get into it. Let's talk about hybrid analysis. So almost all of the color that we see in Habaneria hybrids comes from 5 species predominantly. That is Rhodokyla at the top left, Robelenia in the top right, Xanthokyla in the bottom left, and Eric Michaeli in the bottom right. We've already seen Carnea, which is the 5th species, and that is also a light pink. And then only very recently did we start using a species called Janelle Hainiana, which is also pink. So let's just get right into it. We take Xanthokyla, which is yellow, cross it with Rhodokyla, which is an orange, and we get this. We get an orange, which is kind of what you expect. Now, right off the bat, one of the wonderful things about Xanthokyla is that it is a species, is a compact grower. A specimen-sized Xanthokyla will be shorter than about 6 inches tall. So that is easily a windowsill growing plant, and it breeds compact windowsill growing hybrids. So tanager, for example, you see we have the leaves right here, and then immediately atop the leaves, it's where your flowers are. You don't have some 6-7 inch long stem before the flowers. No, you have leaves and then flowers immediately on top of that. These are easily compact windowsill growing plants. So we've got another Xanthokyla hybrid, so you know it's going to be nice and compact, and we cross it with Eric Michaeli, we get pink. We also get our first iteration of the true neon colors. You can see why someone might think this is dyed. This looks like the fake, Kroger Phalaenopsis that has been dyed, but that's actually the true color of flower. Now, these are also super compact. My specimens at Primavera have never broken about 4 inches. They're itty bitty plants. Now we've got the red or scarlet Robelenia, and we are crossing it with the bright yellow Xanthokyla. So as color theory teaches us, your orange by yellow is still yellow. Okay, so we have to talk about this for a minute because that is not exactly what you expect. It is compact, which we would expect, but Robelenia, despite being a brilliant, bright scarlet, seldom ever passes on its color. But what it does do is it takes the color of what you cross it onto and drastically amplifies it. So right here, we've got Rhodokyla by Roblenii. It is a brilliant, blinding neon orange. And if you don't believe me, here we've got Carnea, very, very subtle pink. We're crossing with Roblenii, get a bright pink. There's almost none of that scarlet that comes through. It's all from Carnea. Isn't that wonderful? Ranieri, now we're going to be We're going to be talking about a few Carnea crosses. Now, Carnea does several things to the cross. For one, it turns almost everything pink. You're always going to get pink. Next, it takes those flowers to the gem and just really makes the side lobe of the lip a lot larger, which means you have a larger flower, which is wonderful. You get things like this. You get much broader flowers, so easily over about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, which might be small for Cattleya, but is large for Habanerias. We have now Carnea and Eric Michaeli cross the two together, and we get this. Now, something else interesting is happening here too. You can see the sepal, we are bringing it back forward. In all these other section Rhodokyla, they mostly reflects, or at least partially reflects, so it's not really part of the face of the flower. But in some of your Carnea hybrids, you actually bring the sepals back forward so that they're part of the face of the flower again. So once again, making a larger, at least in some ways, flower. It's also fragrant. Now, I think it smells sort of like a vanilla cloves. It's a really delightful fragrance, but several other people have described it as hot dog. I don't know where that's coming from. I swear it is vanilla cloves, but it's not just one person, it's multiple people who have said it smells like hot dogs. I swear that's wrong. But you can see they're beautiful. I think they smell great. And this is what a nice specimen plant looks like.
Maybe you just like hot dogs.
Maybe I just like hot dogs. We have Rhodokyla Eric Michaeli. This is Tracy. We're going to stick with those fragrant Eric Michaeli hybrids because Eric Michaeli is fragrant. Now, another cool thing that Eric Michaeli introduces is this gradation in color. Where Eric Michaeli up here, you see we've got this kind of darker pink that very quickly fades into a very light pink. Well, that's dominant. So almost every Eric Michaeli cross in some way will have that. Where'd my mouse go? There we go. That color, that kind of gradation in color where it starts off dark and quickly fades. Very nice. This is Janelle. So we're going to go through these relatively quickly because in terms of the traits that the plant passes on, it's pretty identical to Carnea. Turns a lot of things pink, makes broader flowers. Janelle Haniana is another compact grower, so this does reduce the size of your hybrid pretty substantially. But you get things like this. Really beautiful shape. Gala is one of my favorites in terms of shape.
Thank you.
Just get a remarkable full flower, and look at the contrast in color of the foliage. That is brilliant. Now, Carnea also paints the foliage. You get purples, greens, mottling, that rain greens, pink. What was it? Pink paw that we saw at the very beginning that I talked about the foliage. That was another Carnea cross. Now we're going to increase the complexity a little bit, getting into some, go figure, complex hybrids. Now this is interesting. We've got Rhodokyla as the seed parent, and we also have Rhodokyla coming in the pollen parent side. Now, as we'll talk about in a little bit, Rhodokyla itself is a very variable species. So you get a lot of variety. All bright colors, but you get reds, you get oranges, you get some bicolors up here, very rarely intense bicolors. You get yellows, colors crossed, lots of different variation. Rain greens, paint paw, some with beautiful colors, some with beautiful shape. It's always in separate cultivars, always separate cultivars. Now, Gubbio, this is one of mine. I have a Italian province series, and I used the itty bitty little Primavera up here. And my idea with this was to get a nice compact plant with larger, broader flowers. And this is what we've got. So far, these have stayed less than about 8 or 9 inches tall, even when in full bloom. So we're moving the right direction. And the shape is magnificent. Really hoping you have more of that kind of fluorescent pink to come through. Not yet. I always have to show summer tanager because of this right here, conure. So Habaneria conure is a power breeder for Habaneria because not only does it create a huge variety of different colors, but it passes on those colors very intensely. And out of all of the colorful Habanera we look at today, this is the one that I can confidently say is not true to color in the picture. It is such an unbelievably bright red that I have never once been able to really get the picture to come out correctly. This is what it looks like. It is so unbelievably bright that when this plant is in full bloom, it looks like someone has lit a fire on the table. I mean, it's genuinely that bright red. Castelluccia, now we're crossing two very different colors together, and we get a lot of different variety. We get pinks, we get hot pinks, we get sort of oranges, pastel oranges, some of the sunset hues, we'll talk about those later. We even get some bicolors where we've got almost white sepals and an orange lip. Lots and lots of different variety. And then I like to finish off the color section with just a special hybrid. This is actually named for my uncle and my grandfather. This is what it looks like. Beautiful, hot, pinkish salmon. Now, playing with color forms. As I mentioned, rhodokyla itself comes in a lot of different colors. In fact, we won't get into it, but if you've ever seen rhodokyla yellow or xanthokyla or robollenii orange, etc., sometimes they're right and sometimes they're not. So rhodokyla yellow, when you find for sale, is almost always xanthokyla, but rhodokyla yellow also exists. So once you learn kind of the ins and outs, there's a lot of confusion there. But right here, this is our orange rhodokyla. This is a true yellow rhodokyla. Now, rhodokyla can also be found in red. Robollenii is most commonly in scarlet, but there's actually an orange and a yellow form. There's even an alba or a pure white form called subspecies philippinensis. I desperately want any of those three. I just take one. I'll take any one of them, but none of them are in cultivation yet. Habanea most commonly comes in the pink form, but there's actually an alba form called Forma nervosa, or the snowy white Carnea. So what happens if you use some of those different color forms? Let's take tanager, and instead of using the normal color form of rhodokyla, let's use the yellow one, like that. And what do you get? You get a beautiful golden yellow tanager. That's fantastic. Same here, if you take that yellow tanager and use it in other crosses, you get all sorts of wonderful colors. And this is another great example of what I call the sunset hues, or the sunset tones. This is one of the things that I'm really breeding for because they're so uncommon in Habanera. These sunset colors are colors like oranges or pinks that fade into yellows or even whites. And this cross in particular, you can see we're really getting some of those beautiful, subtle sunset hues to come through. Habspello, I took Carnea forma nervosa, the white Carnea, and crossed it with Oriole, which is a beautiful yellow. Now, who thinks this is going to be yellow? Who thinks that white isn't going to matter at all? Raise your hand. Who thinks it's going to be a pastel yellow? We're going to mix the two of them and get all sorts of kind of subtle forms of yellow. Raise your hand. No. Wow. Who thinks it's going to be pink? You can only try, right? Now here is the exciting part. Carnea forma nervosa, instead of Carnea, which almost always breeds pure pinks, when you use forma nervosa, about half of your offspring is pink, but the other half mixes the two colors. So you do get different color forms. Here we've got sort of a pastel peachy orange. We've even got a pure yellow from the same cross. That's fantastic. Now this yellow one is also one of the only naturally variegated Habanera I've ever created. Here we go again, Carnea forma nervosa. We cross that with tanager. We've got some sunset hues this time, but then we're going to wash out some of that color, get some yellows. We're going to wash out more of that. We've got a really, really light pink. Did it again, Carnea forma nervosa by Trogon. We've got our pinks. There will always be the pinks, but then we wash out a bunch of that color. And finally, pure white, not a lick of color at all in this. So whenever I use Carnea in a cross, I always try to use Carnea forma nervosa if it's available to me, because I love the pinks. They are wonderful, but I like all the other variation too. So I always will use Carnea forma nervosa if I can. Now, hybrid analysis shape. Everything we've looked at so far has pretty much been a similar shape, right? Well, we're getting very far away from that shape now. And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about this crowd favorite called Habaneria medusa. So first of all, this is a huge plant. So we are easily over 30 inches. Really, these can pretty easily get to about 40 inches tall versus the rhodokyla, which a tall rhodokyla will be about 18 to 20 inches tall. You have a very many flowered, very dense inflorescence, and you've got fringe. This is a tad bit different looking than most of the section rhodokyla. That means we're back to the anatomy dungeon. So the lateral sepals, these completely reflex. You do not see them at all at the face of the flower. They don't want to be part of it. The side lobe of the lip is massive. So right here, this entire set of fringe is one side lobe of Hab medusa. The mid lobe is this itty bitty teeny little stalactite right there. It's teeny tiny. So what happens when you cross it with something like Xanthochyla? You get something wonderful. We get this wonderful fringe. We really mix the shapes pretty well. We get a lot of that color too. Now, it's Xanthochyla, so it's compact, right? Not so much. Medusa is a large plant, said 40 inches tall. So even the quote compact fringy plants are still going to be 24 to 30 inches. So we're still well outside of windowsill territory at this point. What if you cross it with Robulenii? Well, it actually does pass on some color this time. We get beautiful fringe and color. Pegasus. This is one of the most famous Habaneria for, I think it was just the only one that was commonly available when Habanerias started becoming more popular. Now, Foligno. I'd like to spend a little bit extra time on this because it's what I like to call the Regnieri effect. We're not going to get into why I think this happens, but what you need to know is whenever you have Hab Regnieri, and you cross it with a white flower, about half of your offspring is pure white, not a lick of color at all. It's pure white. The other half has color. Most of it is going to be pinks to medium pinks, some yellows and oranges on rare occasions, but about half of them are pure white. Rain Green's iceberg. All I want you to remember is Medusa by Tracy. We will come back to Medusa by Tracy. This is going to be an important one. This is what it looks like. We still have that gradation in color from Eric Michaeli. Medusa by Tracy. We'll come back. Bird of Paradise. Now we're going to get, oh, I accidentally clicked. There it is. So as you increase the complexity of your rhodokyla parent, you get fishtails. You get little flying fish. And so you sometimes bring back that bifurcated midlobe. Cat's whiskers. I have a great example plant. Give me a sec. I'm going to steal this. Okay, here we go. Cat's whiskers. So to talk about the anatomy very quickly. Yes, thank you. The anatomy of these two species would not be further the opposite from each other. So Lindleyana right here. Actually, can you flip the light off for just 1 second? I'll cue you in, don't worry. So Lindleyana up here, you can barely even see the side lobes of Lindleyana. They are itty bitty little fingers that just barely stick out of the side. They are teeny tiny. Medusa, you've seen it, they have the massive side lobes. The midlobe of Lindleyana, where am I? Is right here. It makes up about a third of the flower. The midlobe of Medusa is the itty bitty little finger that sticks down. The sepals of Lindleyana make up the other 2/3 of the flower, while the sepals of Medusa reflects completely. So these anatomically are polar opposites. And when you cross them together, you get something like this. Okay, now we can turn the lights on. That works too. So I'd like to spend a little bit of extra time with this one because it's kind of goofy. It's goofy in a fantastic way there. Lindleyana is a very, very tiny plant that has leaves that lay on the surface of the soil. So when it's not in bloom, it's maybe about 1.5 to 2 inches tall, and that's it. That's a very dominant trait. So anytime you use Lindleyana in a cross, you have leaves that, as you can see here, lay on the surface of the soil. Now, Medusa is not like that. We've talked about how large Medusa can get, and that is also pretty dominant in its crosses. So when you cross these two together, you get a plant that when it's not in bloom is about this tall. That's a pretty short plant. And then it does this. where all of a sudden your plant is 14 times the height that it used to be. And it's like a beautiful display. It just shoots those spikes up into the air and almost displays them like a trophy. And I really love to spend a little extra time. That's what they do. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good lights. This is the first time it's ever happened that it just so happened that someone had cat's whiskers in full bloom for this talk. So thank you, Chad. Had mayfly. This is an oddball. That is what it looks like. Very funky. Saffron finch. Now we're going to get into some crinifera crosses. Now crinifera is another unique species. It's a very compact grower. It breeds compact plants, but they do have a tendency to have a very long spike. And actually, there's a saffron finch over here on the raffle table too. Have genu. This is Regnieri by crinifera. Regnieri by a white flower. About half of these are going to be pure white, and they are. The rest of them have a little bit of color, and holy moly, spectacular shape. I love the shape of this one. Now, bright finch is another conure cross, which means fantastic color, and that's what you get. Now, I like spending a little bit of extra time on this one too, because I think this picture shows a really great example of what crinifera does. So if you grow crinifera, you'll maybe be a little bit upset about how the spike looks, because you end up with a spike that has a pretty decent amount of flowers, let's say 15 to 20 flowers, and it is about the thickness of a toothpick. And this spike is doing this every single time wind hits it or you move it. It is flailing around like a wildcat, but they can take it. That's natural. The cross itself, or the species itself, it is sturdy, it is extremely flexible, it passes that on to the hybrids, and it does the same thing. You end up with these unbelievably kind of worrisome thin spikes with all those flowers up top, and they are going to kind of cascade down, sort of like a waterfall phalaenopsis, and you are going to look at it and go, there's no way. It's gonna break. There's no way. And they won't break. They'll be fine, and they just sort of have that look to them. It's very interesting. Pituitary. So before I started Rusty Exotics, I actually worked in research. It was glycobiology and neuroscience. And so I said, how fun would it be to start a neuroanatomy series? This is as good as it gets. It is all downhill from here. This is what it looks like. Very interesting, and some of them actually have pretty dominant crinifera influence. Not dominant, but pretty prevalent crinifera influence. Now I'll talk about some intergenerics. So these have been huge in the world of Habaneria because of many different reasons that we'll talk about shortly. If you're not familiar with what an intergeneric is, it's what happens when you cross two different genera together. So in this case, a Habaneria and a Pictilis, and it's going to make a Pectabaneria. So first, we got to talk about Pictilis hoxiana. What is it bringing to the table? First of all, we have a very dense inflorescence. So each one of these flowers is quite literally sitting on top of the other one. We also have a decently compact plant. So just like Lindleyana, it has leaves that lay on the surface of the soil. You can see them down there. You can, there we go. You can see them down there. They're just hanging out. And then we have a unique floral anatomy, which means, back to the anatomy. So this is hoxiana. We've got our labellum, just like any Habaneria. We have got our petals. We've got our dorsal, sepal, and wait a second. That's something special, right? That's in Habaneria, that's the hood. But this, if you wore a hood that looked like that out into the rain, your hair would get soaked. That's a terrible hood. But that's one of the fun things about Pictilis. They are going to take the hood that at this point has just sort of been on top of the flowers of Habaneria. We're going to open it up. So all of a sudden, now the hood is going to play a pretty important role in the face of the flower. Dorsal sepals, they don't care. They reflect. So what happens when you cross hoxiana with carnea? That's what you get. And look at the hood. That's not a hood anymore. This is wonderful. We've taken this piece that just sits there, and now we've opened it. So once again, the flowers are going to be larger. We cross it with tanager, same thing. We're opening up that hood, this time just adding a little bit of color into there. Pectabaneria pink prominent. This is another one of my series. It's the moth series. Now, why I started doing the moth series is my brother is into moths. It's like a little side hustle, not side hustle, but a hobby of his. And I thought, well, anytime I have a Hoxiana cross, I'll send him a picture. And then he sends me a few moth pictures back and says, name it after one of these. So this is named after the pink prominent moth. And that's what it looks like. We've got some sunset hues. It's quite nice. As the name pink prominent suggests, about half of these are pure yellow without a lick of pink at all. Oops. Now, I like to say this was on purpose, and this is the pink prominent moth.
There you go.
It does have yellow, so I'm safe. I like to say that was on purpose, but it does have yellow. Western Tanager, it's another conure cross. It's going to have amazing color, and they sure do. All of them are really beautifully bright yellow or orange. Orange oakworm, this is another moth series, and it is orange, blindingly bright orange too. Habanerias Perseus, we're getting into some different ones. This is Pictilis Hoxiana with Medusa, and that's what we get. We get tons of flowers, and we're bringing the fringe back into it, which is fantastic. Umbertide, this is a very odd cross, but lovely. I need to remake that one, I really do. Now ptarmigan, we are looking at all sorts of different things anatomically. So we've talked about cat's whiskers. Lindleyana, Medusa, they are essentially polar opposites, but now we're including Hoxiana in this too. Some of the early blooming seedlings look like this. They kind of look like an ornate sword. Others really run with that Medusa influence, and you get things like that. Now, I'd like to talk a lot about how Hoxiana drastically increases flower count, or at least artificially increases flower count, because it makes a really dense inflorescence, and you can see that. So we're getting lots and lots of flowers, really just packed like sardines in a tin can on top of each other, which is wonderful. Hi, Wacket. This is part of Leon's ornithology series, and he made this for a specific reason, and that is on the seed parent side, we have the yellow lip of Hoxiana, and on the pollen parent side, we also have the yellow lip of Hoxiana. And he said, let's see if we can get that yellow lip to come through. And we kind of did. Not extensively. But over the past 3 or so years since this hybrid has been out, there has been some improvements. The most yellow so far is called Habanerias pecan, and it has a weird trait that I have never ever seen in any Habaneria or Pectibinaria, which is the flower opens, and about half of them have a beautiful yellow lip, which then over about 2 weeks fades all the way into pure white. I don't know why they do that, but they do, and we still kind of have yellow. So it's still some improvement. Someone's angry outside. Now, some of them have bloomed like this, just beautiful fringe, and once again, just really stacking those flowers on top of one another. White jade, I think this is going to be one of the most awarded Pectibinaria. Every single one of them has looked like this. They are all gorgeous. I really think this will be one of the most highly awarded. Thai dancer. Now we're looking at something quite different with Pictilis Susannae. Susannae is a massive plant. It has tubers that can get about the size of my forearm. It has a plant itself that can get feet tall, and it has flowers that are easily over 2 inches wide. Every part of this plant is huge, especially for Habaneria and for genus or genera. The other interesting thing about this plant is that I grew this particular one for about 7 years before I realized it's fragrant. So sometimes when I got home from the lab, it would be 3 in the morning, sometimes a little bit later. And one time I got home and I wanted to go and de-stress a little bit. And so I went into the grow room. And as soon as I opened the door, I smelled this kind of sweet fragrance like honey, but also like someone might have knocked over a chemical. And so I'm walking through just going, what is that smell? And as I walk past this plant, I realize it's this. So Pictilis Susannae is nighttime fragrant, and so are its hybrids. In fact, there's another one, Kiat Tan, right, which is on the raffle table. We have a seedling Kiat Tan, which is Hoxiana, crossed with Susannae, and it is fragrant. It's a beautiful hybrid. Rain Green's manta ray, this is Medusa by Tracy crossed with Susan. This is what it looks like. Now, the reason I wanted you all to remember Medusa by Tracy is because of this right here. This is Medusa by Tracy, and this is what happens when you incorporate Susanate into this. So not only is this a much larger plant, it's a larger column, larger hood, larger lip, but to actually get this picture, I had to take about 4 pots and stack them on top of each other, and then put Rain Green's iceberg on top of that really precarious stack, just to get the 2 flowers parallel with one another. So I just like showing this as an example of really how much larger the plants and flowers are just by incorporating Susanate. Max Dusa, this is Fringy by Fringy by Fringy, and it is fringy. Wonderfully fringy. So my question then was, what if you take Max Dusa and you recreate some of these older crosses? So Max Dusa by Rhodokyla, you get this, you get nice dentation, some nice color. Very oddly enough, you get smaller plants. So for whatever reason, I can't really explain this. The size of these plants almost always goes after the Rhodokyla parent, which means you're closer to now having fringy or at least dentates and windowsill grown plants. It's very odd, but these are a few years old now and they have still never broken about 24 inches when in full bloom. Sparganothus, this is Regnieri by Max Dusa. Beautiful fringe, great shape. Now, hybrid analysis moving forward. There are so many different pathways to pursue in Habaneria. Out of the over 900 species, we have really only talked about 10 this entire talk. So that means that there are numerous new species to incorporate into hybrids. But we're going to talk about some of those new species. Hippocampi, this is part of the neuroanatomy series, and this is where I really started to go south, because one major foresight I had. When you're registering a hybrid, one of the main rules, and really the only rule that they're very careful about, is that you cannot have a Latin or a Greek word. And I'm over here starting an entire neuroanatomy series where all of them are based on Latin roots. I don't know how I didn't think of that one, but this is Hippocampi named after the hippocampus, and I had to cut that Latin root off. That's what it looks like. Some of them with very little fringe, like this. Corpulosa, another one in the series, Max Dusa by Crinifera. We have compact plants with really large flowers. So these are easily over 2 inches wide, even on first bloom seedlings. I can't wait to see these bloom this year. Fornix, now we're going to be looking at other species like Medioflexa. Do I have any Bolophyllum growers here? Okay, a few. Wonderful. So you know how Bolophyllum, if any of you don't know, the lip is sort of on a hinge where the slightest fragrance, the slightest kind of wind or breeze will hit the lip and it just flutters like this. So Medioflexa has what we call feather fringing. It does the same thing. It's fringe, and the slightest breeze will hit it and it just flutters like a fairy, just like that. And it passes that on to its hybrids. So this is Fornix. They have lots and lots of flowers and they all just fluttered in the slightest little breeze. Cerebellum, I don't know how I got this Latin word through, but I did, and I did not question it. But this is what it looks like. Mammilophylla, named after the mammilothalamic tract. This is Pinky by Medioflexa, and it's a mini cerebellum. This is White Spring, another beautiful Medioflexa cross. Interesting Habanerias. Now some dentata crosses. Now dentata is easily the worst parent of any Habaneria, and there are 2 reasons for that. So reason number 1 is the species is apomictic, which means even if you have a Habdentata and all of the buds are closed, you can manually open them, demasculate them, so take all the pollen off, and despite doing that, 100% of those flowers will still make seed pods, even without self-pollinating. So they clone themselves essentially through seeds. So you can never use it as a seed parent. Likewise, if you use it as a pollen parent, you get terrible viability in your crosses, which means, you know, as a hybridizer for fun, that's fine, I don't mind. As a commercial grower, I can't do anything with a flask if I only get 10 seedlings from it. But there's a reason that I still actually am going down some of these lines. First of all, they look kind of odd, definitely unique. Second of all, that is beautiful. Now, dentata can easily get 60 flowers on a single inflorescence. So imagine that plus 59 more flowers. That's amazing. So despite it being a very frustrating line to go down, I really do think there's a lot of use and potential going down these dentata lines. Damselfly, we're getting really odd here using a species called rostrata. Looks like that. Very different. That's what it looks like. Rostrata has a sort of camouflage where the sepals are brown. You can see it up here. That's just the natural color of the sepals, and it passes that trait on to its hybrids. So you have brown sepals, the buds look dead, and then they open. Pixie, also another weird one. This is Chlorina. They look like that. They're super unique. They're super cute. I love them. And now we're on to the portion where I can't even pronounce my own hybrid names. I thought that it would be fun to go down an Irish folklore line. Yeah, I don't know. I think I want my names to be unpronounceable or something. I'm not sure why I do this. But all of these kind of bug-esque Habaneria, the ones that kind of look like bugs, I said I'll name them after Irish folklore. And I committed to this before I actually learned like the pronunciation and the spelling of the Irish folklore.
Oops.
So once again, it's terrible, but I love it. So Habaneria, this is Anya. This is Eric Michaeli by Porphyrocola. These are wonderful. And these are some true compact ones too, because Porphyrocola up here, when it's not in full bloom, is about half of a centimeter tall. Once again, the leaves lay on the surface of the soil, and this is a true miniature, so a really, really short plant. This is Habaneria Aden, not Etane, Aden, Xanthochylla by Porphyrocola. That's what it looks like. Really unique shape. Habaneria Ansel. This is Eric's pink thing by Ostra sinensis, which is another just absolutely bizarre and very non-flat species. The little ghosts. Really interesting. And now, potentially the most appropriately named hybrid I've ever named. This is not Habaneria, this is Hectabaneria, Cleedna. And why is it so appropriately named? So first of all, these bloom around Halloween, so they're in full bloom right now. Second, Ostra sinensis is a very ugly, dead-looking plant. It's just like Rostrata. It has a form of camouflage where the leaves naturally have this mottled brown look to them. If you're looking at it and you know it's supposed to look like that, you say, oh, okay, that's unique. If you don't know what you're looking at it, you look at it and you think that's diseased and probably a dying plant, but it's their natural coloration. Also, Cleedna is the queen of the banshees, and the flowers look like little ghosts. That's great. It's named after the queen of the banshees, blooms around Halloween, the plant looks like it's dying, and the flowers look like little ghosts. Wonderful. Fantastic. I'm really proud of this. Now, Pectorchis, someone was asking me about the Pectorchis beforehand. This is the first time that a Pectorchis has ever been made, which is Pilus by Sinorchis. This is what they look like. They're very interesting, very unique flowers, and just as all Hoxiana, I don't have the picture here, but you get lots and lots and lots of flowers on a very small spike. Now, Arborvitae, it's fantastic. This was on the cover of some AOS magazine, so I can't hype it up as much as I used to, but it looks amazing. So Habaneria culture. Before I get into this, I always have to plug my website. The reason I do that is if you go onto the website, rustyexotics.com, and you go to cultural info, I have an entire section, an entire PDF all on Habaneria culture. It probably has more info than you would ever want, but it is all on there, and it is all for free. You can download it, you could print it out, you can use it to light a campfire, you can do whatever you want with it, but it's on there and it is for free. Now with that, let's talk about Habaneria culture, how not to kill them. First of all, lighting. I keep all of mine under full spectrum LEDs. I don't use these god awful eye burning purple LEDs anymore. I use all, yeah, purpley, reddish,
Yeah.
indigo, whatever you wanna call it. They are terrible. They're irritating. I use white ones now, so it's kind of difficult to find the purple ones. In general, large growers, so the white flowered ones, so Medusa, Dentata, Susannae, they're hybrids, they all like bright lights, they're similar to Cattleya. The smaller, colorful flowering ones. So things like Rhodokyla, Lindleyana, Hoxiana, those hybrids are like medium light, so closer to Phalaenopsis, but in between Phal and Cattleya lighting. What does too little light look like? It looks like eviolation. So this is when each leaf is separated by a significant portion of stem, so maybe about 1 to 2 inches of stem. That means your Habaneria is not getting enough light. What does too much light look like? It's like sunburn. So yellowing or especially browning, especially the tips, that means that your plant is getting a little bit too much light. Properly illuminated Habanerias should look like this, where you have the leaf, and then you've got another leaf emerging right on top of that, and then another leaf right on top of that. That means that your Habaneria is getting the proper amount of light. Soil. I get so many questions about soil, and I'm going to tell you what I use and then why you shouldn't use that, and then I'm going to tell you what you should use instead. So I start with a base mix of 50% Pro Mix HP and Mr. Natural Woodland Soil Mix, which is sold in North Georgia and nowhere else in the world. That's why I wouldn't suggest using it unless you want to take a trip out to Georgia. Come visit me in Atlanta. So what I would use instead is just Pro Mix HP with extra perlite. You can find Pro Mix HP online. I think it's even on Amazon. Just add some more perlite to that, and that is a perfect medium for Habanera. So it is important though, you've got to adapt the soil to your own watering needs. So if you have to water every single day, you just can't go without watering that frequently. Put more perlite in there, or put some charcoal in it, or some orchid bark in there. Something that's going to make it so the medium retains less water, but never stays soggy. If you water, let's say once every 2 weeks, put more Pro Mix in there, or maybe even some pure peat in there, so that it retains more water and stays damp when you end up going back and watering 2 weeks later. Always adapt to your own watering habits. That's not just Habanera, that's not just orchids, that's any plant that you grow. Potting, use a deep plastic pot. The tubers are hirsute, they're a little bit fuzzy, and if you use a clay pot, they will adhere to the side of that and they will become a permanent fixture of that clay pot. This is what I just mentioned beforehand: Pro Mix HP, charcoal, perlite. New Zealand sphagnum for me stays way too soggy, but if you are someone who waters once every 2 weeks, that might actually work very well for you. So water, during active growth, you want to use a low ppm water. So anything below about 100 parts per million of total dissolved solids works well. But really, if you use it for your orchids, you can use it for Habanera. Don't let them dry out. They like to stay damp. During dormancy, absolutely nothing. Don't worry, we will talk more about that. Fertilizer, you can use a balanced fertilizer. So 20-20-20 is fine every 2 to 3 weeks. Or I've learned about this wonderful thing called slow release fertilizer. Nutricoat, 13-11-11 is the ratio. You can put that sucker in the pot and 3 months later put it in the pot again. And Habanera respond really, really well to it. You will get wonderful tuber growth, even if you just do that. Pests and diseases, spider mites are probably going to be the worst pest that you'll see on Habanera. Neem oil with a surfactant, so like blue Dawn dish soap, works pretty well prophylactically, so just preventatively. But if you have some spider mites, you can use Azamax, Mite Rid, Avid, and Sultan all work very well if you actually have an infestation and try to get rid of it. Snails and slugs are also diabolical. I hate them. They'll eat the developing shoot early on, which can lead to rot. Metaldehyde or iron phosphate works okay, but the physical method, which is going, ooh, a snail, squishing it, always is more satisfying. Now, if you have what I have, which is a puppy that will eat anything he can get his nose up to, I would not even own metaldehyde. Metaldehyde is extremely toxic to mammals if ingested, so I wouldn't even own it if you have a puppy. I don't own it anymore for that exact same reason. And if you have snails that look like this, you're overwatering. So that is an aquatic snail. Then a quick note on any oil-based chemicals is always spray this when there's not direct light touching the plant. You will burn the plant if you spray this in the middle of the day or when it's in a sunny location. Not pests and diseases, just diseases. Fungal infection or bacterial spotting can be pretty bad on Habaneria. The best way to avoid ever getting that is airflow. Turn on a ceiling fan, put an oscillating fan up, something just to get the air moving. And that alone is usually enough to solve any spotting issue you have. But if you want to treat with something, Prontec, it's not advertised for plant use, but you can use it on plants. It's a wonderful prophylactic, preventative. Thiamyl and Banrot both work really, really well if you have rot issues. They're both systemic too. And then a note for all chemical use, Habaneria lack a thick epicuticular wax, which is a protective coating on the underside of the leaf. So if there's a chemical that you have to use, you just love using it, put it on one leaf, just top and bottom of the leaf, wait about a week, see how that leaf looks, and then treat your plant. Because they lack that protective layer, they can be more sensitive to some chemicals, so just be cautious about it. Now for dormancy, the big bad dormancy. So entering dormancy occurs after flowering. Typically, this is between November and December. Mine were very late this year, so we probably won't see dormancy until late January, maybe even mid-February. The inflorescence begins to yellow, the plants, the leaf begins to yellow, the plant just looks ugly. Sometimes I've had people come into the grow room. I also grow a lot of catasetum, which are also deciduous, and they come in December and they say,
It's all in.
wow, everything's died. Yes, that's exactly what they said, because everything's yellow, everything's brown, but this is what they're supposed to look like. If they are doing this, they're going through their natural dormancy cycle. As soon as you see this yellowing, stop watering. This is a mental thing. This is a mental hurdle. What you want to do is you want to take that plant and put it in the most forgettable spot that you have, because you cannot water it. You want it to go completely bone dry. During dormancy, it's one of the most exciting times of the year. The plant is going to go brown and then it's going to become crunchy, and you can just gently pop it off from the tuber, pour them out, see how well you did, how many there are, how large they are. That's what they look like. We could make fun of them for 10 minutes, but we'll skip that.
How big is that?
Size depends a lot. So some Habaneria like Rhodokyla, your tubers can get maybe 3 to 4 inches. Sometimes Medusa can have 6-inch long tubers. It really just depends on what species are in high.
They're long-term tubers, not like a little BB.
That also depends. Tuber shape is genetic, so Pectylus foxiana, it's got circular tubers. And the South American Habaneria I have over here that actually grows like a bog plant, it's got completely spherical tubers. So the size of them, the shape of them, all depends on the species. So very, very good question. So how do you keep them alive? Method number 1 is do nothing. So you take the tuber, you take the pot full of soil, you can put it to the side, keep it dry. If you keep it in a humid location like a greenhouse, then don't do anything. If you put them in a house that might have really low humidity, just mist that soil very lightly about once a month. It's going to be fine. Method number 2, which is the bag method. This is the number 1 way that I keep all of my Habaneria. Take a plastic bag and take those funky little tubers, throw it in the bag, seal the bag up, throw it into your closet, and then go on vacation for 3 months and come back and look at them. That is genuinely what I do. We put thousands of tubers into big boxes, close the boxes up, put them into a warm, dry location, so above 50 Fahrenheit. I will not look at them until about usually late February, early March. Then I open them up and see them growing. It is that easy. Toss them into a plastic bag and forget about it. If you're using the bag method, this is what they look like. You'll see that those itty bitty little shoots start to emerge. Like I said, usually between late February and March. At this point, you can go ahead and pop them up. And you want it to be about we'll do inches, about ½ an inch below the soil surface. So do I have any catasetum growers in here? Raise your hand. Okay, yeah, a few. I will die on this hill. Catasetum dormancy and Habaneria dormancy are almost identical to one another. So if you can grow a catasetum, you can grow a Habaneria. The only difference is that Habaneria, you shift the tuber beneath the soil, which means you can no longer use the roots as an indicator of when you should water. So over time, I've come up with the kind of rule of threes, where catasetum, you're waiting for those roots to get about 3 to 4 inches long, and then you start watering it. Habaneria, you are waiting for it to have 3 to 4 leaves or a full rosette, and then you can start watering it. So the rule of threes. That little cystic bubble right there, that's a root precursor. So that is going to be a root one day. About 2 weeks after this picture was taken, this is the same plant. Right there. If that was a catasetum, you wouldn't start watering that yet. Those roots are not ready to take up a whole bunch of water, so don't water it. Now, what about this? Look, we've broken the surface of the soil. We're starting to unfurrow that. That's not a full rosette. That's about 2 leaves right there. And when you dig that same plant up, look at that. Those roots are not ready. If that was a catasetum, we wouldn't start watering it. So this is what I do. We have broken the surface of the soil. If you have them in a humid area like a greenhouse, just leave it be. If you have it in lower or ambient humidity, mist the surface of the soil lightly every about 2 weeks, it'll be fine. We are starting to unfurrow right here. If you have it in a greenhouse, leave it be. If you have it in somewhere that's ambient humidity, that's lower humidity, mist the surface of the soil every 2 weeks or so. Here we go. We've got 1 leaf, we've got 2 leaves, we've got 3 leaves. If you were to look down in there, you can see the 4th one starting to come out. At this point, that plant is ready to start growing. Those roots are sitting there, they're waiting to get watered at this point, and once you start watering them, it's going to rapidly start filling the pot with brand new roots. With Habaneria, once they get to this point, you're going to notice all of a sudden they stall. And nothing really happens for about 3 weeks. Well, what is happening? The roots, exactly. It's putting all of its energy into developing the root system. And after about 3 weeks, it rapidly starts to grow. It is ready for water. You got to start watering it at this point. Yes. So most of what I have is already in full growth. There's actually some over on the table that are starting to go dormant at this point. So some of them over here you can let dry out and immediately go into the forget about it stage. I did forget that, yes. And then this is a quick summary of everything that we've gone over in terms of culture. So if you want to take a picture, this is the time to do it. And in the meantime, if anybody has any other questions, now's the time to ask, and then I'll show you my contact info in just 1 second. So if you think of a question later, always feel free to reach out, and I'm always happy to answer, albeit slow to answer. Promise I will. So are there any questions at all?
I got one. If you
Yeah.
are storing them in the pot,
Yes,
when you see it break the surface,
yes.
is that, would that then be a good time to dump it out and repot it because it's stored in the pot?
Yes, so once it's stored in the pot, great question. If it's stored in the pot, you can't see when it starts to grow. So when do you repot it? Personally, I'd probably repot it before well, not before dormancy, but as soon as dormancy begins. That way you can see how many tubers you have, you know what you're actually working with, then repot it, and then you don't have to worry about anything in the spring.
Because I have some things that if you disturb the tuber, if you scratch it even a little bit, it
Yeah.
just rots.
These are not that sensitive.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would, as soon as they're dormant, repot them at that point, and then you don't have to worry about that in the spring. Yeah. Good question. This is all my contact info. Question?
Yeah, you mentioned like the multiple tubers. Is that something that they over time will go from 1 to 2, 3, kind of multiply?
Yes.
And what's a suitable division? I mean, you to go down to single tubers, or what do you recommend?
So what was that last part of the
Oh,
question?
just, do you recommend going down to single tubers if you're gonna divide them? Or is it better to leave, you know, kind of like, say a cattleya,
Yeah.
you're never gonna go down below probably 3.
Yes, yes. So first part of the question, yes, they do slowly divide over time. To go into a little bit more detail, that's also really species specific. So things like Carnea, sometimes you'll get 7 tubers from one. So they divide. Other things like Medusa, Crinifera, you'll have 1 tuber and then 1 tuber and then 1 tuber and then 2 tubers. Really depends. The more you fertilize, typically the more tubers and the larger tubers you'll get. In terms of dividing, it's really up to personal preference. You can put one in a pot, it's going to be perfectly fine. They are not connected by any way, shape, or form. So the tubers, as it starts kind of cloning, are completely independent. So you could keep 20 of them in one pot, you could keep one of them in one pot. Just depends what you want to do.
So the Desis, when it makes a tuber, it's an independent thing. It's not like a Cattleya or a Cymbidium where you're taking a
Correct.
chunk.
Yeah, so they're independent. Now for judging, listen, I know someone's going to think
There's
this.
always something.
Yes, someone I guarantee will be thinking this. Okay, if they're independent, how the heck do you judge a big pot with 15 different plants? So what we started doing in Atlanta is instead of saying, oh, it's a specimen sized plant, we say it's a specimen sized colony. And the reason we say that is they're all clones. That's a singular clone, a singular cultivar. It is all just slowly grown that way from a single tuber over many, many, many years. So in judging, we call it a colony. Any other questions? Yes,
So you saying that you repot with new things every year?
I personally do. You don't have to. If you want to repot every 3 years, that's fine. I personally do it every 2 years because I always end up dividing them. So I'll have some that I either donate to my society or sell. That's the only reason I do it.
So every 2 years for
2 to 3 years, you can get away with repot. Yes. Yes.
Are there any issues if like the dormancy is too short or something? For example, it gets like warmer way faster here or like something like that, or
None at all. In fact, I'm very glad you asked this. This is a great segue. He said, if the dormancy is too short, is that a problem? And the answer is not at all. Sometimes you'll have plants that go dormant instead of 3 months for 5 months. Sometimes you'll have plants that go dormant and then a week and a half later, they start growing again.
Yeah.
Habanerias do what they want, when they want, and if you have a problem with that, it's gonna die. So never try to induce dormancy and never try to bring them out of dormancy. If it is the middle of August and that plant is still dormant, that's fine. It's probably a teenager plant, it's just sleeping in. Let it do that. Once you see it start to grow, then pot it up. But yeah, whatever the plant's doing, just listen to that. Great question. Any other questions? Yes,
We have kind of overall cool summers here.
yes.
Do they have a temperature preference?
Anything above 50 Fahrenheit is going to be fine. They do not like going below 50. If you get them below 50, you're going to have issues with raw. But as long as you keep them above 50, they're going to be happy as.
If they're dry and dormant, is there still a problem?
Yeah, still a problem. So you don't want to keep them outside if you live somewhere that's going to be in the 40s during winter. Something about that cool temperature, they just hate. So definitely bring
They
it.
have a sun porch, dry, but
Gotcha.
it's still cold.
Yeah, I would just bring it inside there. And then during the summer, when it's gonna be warmer, they'll be happy as can be. I'd definitely bring them inside if you live somewhere that drops below 50s. Was there another question? Did you have one?
Oh, yeah, since you grow so many hybrids, how fast, I guess, from seed to flower do these?
Yes. Are there any path growers in here? Any, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say. Okay, so Habaneria from seed all the way to flower with section rhodochyla can be about 18 to 24 months. So 2 years and you already have flower. Sorry. Some of the larger things like Medusa, Susan, you're talking closer to 3 years, sometimes 4 years, depending on the fertilizer regime, really. But still, really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of like turnaround time, that's why you see so many new hybrids get pumped out all the time with Habanera, because they're just so fast. In fact, you can see right here, this plant is in flask. This is Habaneria castelluccia that we looked at, and that is a flower spike in flask. So it didn't even make it out of flask, and we have flowers in this one. Great question.
Now, did it go dormant in flask or just started from seed and just kept on cranking?
They will, yeah, they will go dormant in flask. And that's actually, in terms of timing, deflasking them, you can deflask whenever. And they kind of behave the same. They typically go dormant after you deflask them. So I will usually let them go dormant in flask and then deflask them, and then they immediately wake up. So instantly, we get really good growth right out of flask. All right, is that all? Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much for having me. Listen. Wow.
Right, we will switch. You want to break or go break? I think it's pretty shared.
Alrighty, we're gonna start with the show and tell plants that are online. As always, we've got Judy Chu's plants. This is Mazavia floribunda. Very cute miniature. Another miniature, Phalaenopsis gooseberry. Very floriferous. Dendrobium leona. Another miniature. Oh, sorry, this is Peter's one. Oh, really strong smelling Aurelia retrocala. They have brought us. Oh my God, that's another new intergeneric one, right? I guess it's got Pistachia, right? And then a Renko Cattleya. Muscat Smile, Green Mountain. Oh, that's lovely. But the emerald flower. Dendrobium hibiki, and then the very lovely Phalaenopsis Mendenii. Really pretty mottled foliage. And the flowers are lovely. It's one of my favorite Phalaenopsis. Oh, this one. Ebogenium, Trencherianum. I think it's. Okay, mine is a very warm grower, I believe, but they might tolerate some things. Very spectacular plant, actually. Ebogeniums, I think, should be grown a lot more around here, but.
They smell like coconut.
Smells like coconut? Wow. We all need another coconut smelling plant, besides cherry baby, right?
It's chocolate.
Oh, sorry. Next, sorry. It's coconut. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Same thing. Dendrocalum, Hootsii. I don't know very much about this one, but at least this one actually has like kind of roundish flowers, right? Instead of like the really small, tiny popcorn. Oh, we've got an unidentified Sobralia species. Macrocranthum, but not.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
pretty
not.
special.
And it's small.
I would like a piece of.
Yeah, that's cute.
That's gorgeous. Yeah.
Wow, that's very cute. Huh.
Okay, sorry, I'm staring at it. I can't tell you anything about it. Here, take your pictures before it leaves.
There's one.
It's just saturation. All right. Habanera. We just saw this one. Very lovely model leaves, right? Very small. Do we have this one for sale?
Yes, I didn't see it.
No.
Yes, some hybrids.
Sophonitis senua Cattleya now, very lovely miniature. So Heidi shows us this Stellanitra in the wild.
Oh,
I don't know anybody that grows this.
yeah, she's in so she's on the orchid, association trip in Australia.
Oh, okay.
So this is in Tasmania. And this is one of the first things they've seen, so they're very and fond of raising all of this. Well, we on the road.
Yeah, before.
It's also called the enamel orchid because it's huge, shiny. And I think Roberta grows it.
Roberta grows it.
Yeah, she grows some of those that nobody else can grow.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I've never seen one like the vegetative. I've only seen the flowers. I've never noticed the leaves or anything. So
Yes, they will by tomorrow.
This is the
Oh.
SCA trip plug because of the LC trip.
okay, so see you all in northern Yunnan next year. Okay. All right, I guess we'll start with the live plants in front of us.
Nice. Hey, Bill, could you give that and me just rub your belly and pat?
Okay. All right. Let's see. Jen brings us this Phylogeny speciosum. It's got these nodding. How are we? Sounds okay? It's too far away. Should I?
Hi.
Hi, my name is Derek Carterhouse. Can you hear me, people at home? Turn up volume. Not good. Yes, no. Oh, great. Thank you, Julie. All right. Okay. Next, we have an epidendrum. I can't quite read it. Medea. Medea. Let's Hugo Medea. Hugo Medea. Medina. Okay, let's take a look at it. Huh? Very cute epidendrum. Jan also brings this Brassolaelocatlia Dow's Rapture watercolor. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And then also Jan also brings this Lysu. Oh, okay. So it's Lycasti and Angolua, I guess. It's an intergeneric. And its variety. Yeah, Lysuda meloa. Red Jewel is the Grex.
Let's try it again.
Okay. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, testing. All right, and behind the Lysomelagoa is Abrassolaelocatlia sheer. I can't read the handwriting, sorry. Oh, Cherry Swiss Peggy, and it's got an AM from the AOS. Another bifoliate, lovely color. And then Jan also brings a Miltasia. This is the classic, or at least very well known, Charles M. Fitch, right? Mizumi. It's got an AM from the AOS as well. And Don Nadler brings a Dendrobium spectabile, so section Latoria. Very nice alien-like flowers, right? Like octopus, some might say. Paula Shu brings this Laelia anceps variety fluorescent. Yeah, it's a really dark, very nice anceps. She also brings in Epidendrum embryi. Very nice orange flowers. Is this warm growing, Paula?
No.
No? Embryi you can grow outside. Okay, we're always looking for more colorful epis to grow outside. Paul also brings a couple more hybrids. The tag is in there somewhere. 1980s Carter and Holmes Meristem. Lovely. Alelocatlia chiclet.
It's a stag made with cross.
That's actually very nice. A hippodamia. It's a Brassivola nodosa and Cattleya eclangiae. And I think it should be fragrant. All right, let's see. Chiclet was back there. We did chiclet. Okay. Jessica Krakow brings the Mazavalia fotida, I think. Foda. So I don't know if that's correct. Fotida, right? But it's missing a T or a D. But very lovely miniature, very small flowers, but very cupped.
Stinky.
And stinky.
Hey.
Jessica also brings a Pleurophallis Sicaria. And it's one of these that makes all their flowers in the sort of the leaf axils here. Or yeah, leaf axils. And they rebloom from the same stem. Jeff Harris brings a selection of Habaneria. So we just heard Rusty talk about cat's whiskers, and that is cat's whiskers right here. Very nice egret flowers. Fringiness to the sides. And then here is the Habaneria rhodokyla. Very nice salmon colored flowers. And we've got two Sigmatostalix radicans, one from Jeff and one from Paula. They look a little different. Very nice. I like to think very weedy, but it's still very special. It's a very shareable plant. Christian M brings a Phalaenopsis dusty bell. The flowers are lovely, and very dark. They're kind of neon, but look at the leaves. It's somehow chimeric. And I bring an Oncidium.
Ooh, it is fragrant.
X andretianum. This is a hybrid Harryanum and something else that I don't quite remember, but it does smell really strongly. K. Klum brings a Rodriguiopsis. Oh gosh, this is a mouthful. Eleutherocephala. And this is kind of reminiscent of the Signatostalix, but of course, very different. It's adorable. Stuart Miniker brings this Cadetia taylori. I believe it might be called, is it an dendrobium now? Perhaps, yeah. This is, yeah, very small white flowers. Stuart also brings us Pleurothallus alenii. Oh yeah, and this one has really dark red flowers. This one tends to be readily available, I think. Another of Stuart's plants. This is an unknown. If anybody knows, do tell. Really nice trailing one. Could be a Pleurothallus, I guess, or maybe something else. And then Derek, of course, brings us Zootrophions.
Here's an Atropurpuratum.
Atropurpureum.
And this one is Oblongifolium.
Oblongifolium.
It's got really cool striped purple and yellow flowers. And then this giant guy back here is Argus, one of the largest flowers of the Zootrophions. That's probably what, 2 inches? Of the Zootrophions. And this beautiful one was a gift from Marnie. This is a white colored Zootrophion called Zootrophion vultriceps. Okay.
Justin Peng brings this lovely Barcaria scandens, a nice trailing one. And Bill brings us this intergeneric Neophoenicia fulcata x Papilionanthe Miss Joaquin. And I was just asking if this takes cool temperatures. Apparently it does.
It does, but I think it's because of the Neophoenicia.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be a very long drawing.
And gosh, Bill, you have pieces to share here. It's too big. And Bill also brings a fulcata, but this one has the flowers are huge. And the leaf habit is very upright. I think it should be, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, not very strong at the moment, but yeah. But I believe they are night. All right, yeah. Sharon brings this really nice Phalaenopsis something rather. Oh, it's a primary Javanica x Poltrima. And it is caloric. Poltrima, yeah. Yeah, that's from the Doritis. Definitely.
Another Peloric.
And then another Peloric. Jamie's Sweet Candy.
The first one is actually the hybrid parent of the second one. So I brought in the hybrid parent and then the offspring. What that means.
Turina x Violaceae. And then Sharon also brings us this Oceoclades chameleon. Very nice xeric growing orchid with small but very dainty flowers on a really tall spike. Sharon also brings this Paphiopedilum barbigerum. a miniature species. And it does say that it is the China doll form. Whatever that means. Jeff Harris brings this Phragmipedium bessier. And he also brought an Alexandre of Dendrobium. Another New Guinea Dendrobium. And I think that's about it. Yeah, that's the table. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you all, bye-bye.